Somebody just asked me a question about their teenager who's been acting out a lot lately. And it's a really difficult and challenging situation when you have a teenager who's misbehaving or who's not helping around the house or all of the above. In this person's case, their child has been skipping school, staying out overnight, not helping around the house, not helping with their siblings, and generally being very lippy and quite nasty toward their parent. And the question is, what do you do with a teenager like this? Well, the first thing you need to do is look at yourself, and that's, if you're trying to practice ruthless compassion, that's the first step, is to really look at your own choices and how possibly your choices got you into this situation. And in the case of this person, they had been very lenient toward this child and really hadn't established clear expectations or set clear boundaries to this child's behavior. When this child acted out, they weren't consistent in giving them consequences, and they really weren't consistent in setting down the expectations for how this young person was supposed to behave at home, at school, and in between. So the first thing this person, the parent, had to do is start to change their behavior and start communicating much more effectively and much more clearly to their teenager what is expected of them, when they're supposed to come home from school, what they're supposed to do at home, how they're supposed to talk to their parent, how they're supposed to deal with their homework, and how they're supposed to address their siblings, and also what the consequences will be if they don't meet those expectations. And so this is the only fair thing you can do to your teenager, because then they know what's expected, and then it also makes sense when they get a consequence. If you haven't been clear to your teenager about what's expected of them, it's really unfair to then punish them for their bad behavior. If they know, however, what's expected of them, and they don't follow through, then it makes perfect sense when you say, okay, this is what I asked you to do, and these are your consequences for not doing it, or this is what I asked you not to do, and these are your consequences for doing it. So that's respectful toward the teenager when you make it clear, when you communicate what you want and expect. Also, setting very clear boundaries in terms of what you as a parent will and will not accept and will not tolerate from your child. If your child is talking to you in a disrespectful and hostile manner, it's perfectly reasonable to say to your child, I'm your parent, and I love you and I respect you, and I expect you to at least respect me in turn. You can't talk to me this way, and if you continue to talk to me this way, here are the consequences. And the consequences should always be equal to the offense. You cannot give a consequence that's too little, and equally you can't give a consequence that's too great, because a child has an innate sense of justice, and they understand when a consequence is too trivial to make a difference, but they also understand when a consequence is really out of proportion and too large, and then they get a feeling of being betrayed by you. And if a child feels betrayed by you, they get very hurt and angry and are much less likely to cooperate. On the other hand, if a child feels that your consequences are really piddling and irrelevant, they will disrespect you because they don't feel that you're owning your power and your authority as a parent. So in parenting, you really need to command respect, but you also need to give respect. And ruthless compassion is really about mutual respect. And in terms of the compassion part, you need to have compassion for yourself, because it's painful to have your adorable, charming, sweet baby turn into this hostile, snarling, uncooperative teenager who just wants to act out and make everyone's life miserable. And you also have to have compassion for the teenager, because imagine if you're miserable experiencing this teenager's behavior, how bad it must be living in that teenager's own psyche. This teenager's obviously troubled, they're hurt, they're angry, they're confused. Some of it is hormonal, some of it is because they're confused about what is expected of them, what their role is in life, what their future will bring. And so having some compassion for the fact that this is a troubled or tormented or confused young person will also help put things in perspective. If you have compassion for yourself and feel, wow, this is a really tough situation, and if you have compassion for the child and understand that they're struggling as well, then you can form an alliance and work together as a team to make the situation better for all of you.